Hello, every pony. This is Nightlife again, and I am going to give you Chapter 9 of Fallout Equestria Project Horizons. This time around, it's chapter. Oh, this chapter is called Stones. Or, nope, just Stone. Now, I've. I know I've been talking a lot, or way too fast recently, and I'm going to try and fix that. So, here's to hoping everything goes well. Chapter 9 Stone. There was no talking. There was no smiling. There were only rocks. I am not a smart pony. I've said it before. Others know it. I'm impulsive, immature, reckless. I've known two smart ponies. I know two very smart ponies. P21 taught himself picking locks and hacking terminals when he wasn't even supposed to be allowed to read. He somehow convinced duct tape to break just about every rule for fraternization and teach him skills he'd need to eventually escape the stable. Morning Glory was a medical technician in the Enclave. She was younger than me, and she was already working for the only ponies who seemed capable of designing anything new. She could discern injuries and administer drugs at the drop of a feather. She'd she'd even begun researching reasons behind the mental de- de- degradation of and psychopathic tendencies of raiders by analyzing their brains. Wow, this Billy is smart. Me, I shoot things, and it's not an intellectually demanding job. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's one of the top three most common skill sets in the wasteland. It involves a steady horn, a wanton disregard for personal injury, and lots of ammunition. When shooting things is insufficient, then I swap to bashing things with a heavy metal stick. I still think about some kind of heavy metal band with a stick. The effectiveness of both methods varies greatly from situation to situation. For instance, when I'd ignored the warnings of a young filly, both proved woefully inadequate in preventing her from being torn in two. So I have to so I have come to accept that I am not, nor will ever be, a smart pony. Thus, when P21 and Glory state that I was an absolute idiot facing down five farm ponies almost unarmed and unarmored, I can only conclude that they are right. When they elaborate that I should have involved them because my safety matters to them, I likewise can only assume they know something I'm missing. There's just one catch. It seems that two events, or it seems that with two events, I somehow placed a rather gargantuan bounty on my head. The simple act of cutting my head from a pit buck and presenting them to one reaper named Deos would earn a staggering amount of wealth. Capturing me alive would double that amount, presuming that Deos would take his time torturing me and violating my anus. Ew. He's that kind of pony. P21 would have uh, would P21 would have me kill any and all would-be bounty claimants. By attempting to take my life, he says, they have forfeited theirs. Eye for an eye, hoof for an hoof. Every pony ends up blind and lame. I can't do it. Those five ponies weren't Deus. They weren't monsters. They had a need for the money, same as any pony. I could have killed them easily. Playing it back in my head, it wouldn't have taken much. They'd hoped to take me unawares and alone. A lucky shot in the night. Was I wrong to let them live? Morning Glory is put out with me for another reason. In facing said threats alone, I somehow violated one of the tenets of friendship. One of us faces a threat, we all face it. That is apparently a rule of friendship. Trying to protect her was wrong. Better she stand beside me like she had fight. Better she stand beside me like she had fighting the dragon mutants. She she wants to be there when I fight monsters, when I face bounty hunters, when I murder a room full of traumatized children. Does she realize I'm not a good pony? I'm not a hero. I'm just trying to do better because everywhere I look, I see things getting worse and worse, and the only thing that makes any sense is trying to make it better. Old Hoss said Big Macintosh was a hero because he would have given his life for any pony. I sometimes wonder if I could turn into the bound, if I could turn the bounty on myself and split the proceedings among the Crusaders, P-21, and Glory. She's going to get hurt if she stays with me. Hurt very badly. To top it all off, I had a mystery inside my pit buck. A computer file that is apparently so valuable that my stable had been raided to retrieve it. It was encrypted. Finding out just what it was supposed to do was going to be likewise very expensive. Yet it was the only reliable chance I had to sort of trusting the Enclave, which I wasn't ready to do. At the moment, though, none of that mattered a damn as I sat in detention in a classroom on the second floor of the Rosehood Academy building, library building with P-21, Glory, and the Crusaders. We'd found the academy under lockdown. I didn't want to speculate on what would happen if to any students caught in lockdown 200 years ago, but at least there weren't a lot of bones in the classrooms, where Bronco sentries patrolled the academy perimeter, and so far no bounty hunters had faced the metallic protectors. The 7 of us had stumbled onto the grounds and had been ordered to report to the office or face immediate vaporization. I had to admit, I considered the shooting option first and second, but the fact was that the academy buildings were the closest and largest structures to Brimstone's Falls, and if we started shooting, it'd not only draw attention, but also take away a layer of protection I could use right now. The 7 of us had been taken to see the acting Dean Hardy, one of the spidery, levitating style robots. The office was a complete disaster area, which was actually pretty typical given that that Equestria as a whole was a complete disaster area. A skeleton lay in the corner with a bullet hole through his skull. Please explain why you are breaking lockdown procedures, miss. A buzz, click, whir, and beep. I looked down at some of the yellowed papers on the desk, scanning for a name. Marigold, I replied, seizing on a sudden whim as I threw my hooves around P-21, who went stiff as a rock. I was just looking for some time alone with my buck friend. Sure shot? Please don't call my mom, because she was in a stable, and I was pretty sure she'd be miffed if she had to come pick me up from school. That's funny. More clicks and beeps. Miss Marigold, this is the third infraction for fraternizing with male students who made within 200 years. I'm afraid I have no choice but to contact your parents and have you all report for lunch detention in the library for the duration of the lockdown. Yes, Dean Hardy, I said as adolescently as possible. Can we at least go to our rooms and get our homework? The dean beeped as his camera swung from one of us to the next. Very well. Please carry your hall passes with you at all times or risk vaporization. He reached into a drawer on the desk and withdrew a stack of faded flat paper cards covered in yellow lamination. Each one hung from a lanyard and still had a faintly glowing glyph stamped on it. Now please report to detention in room 203 of the library. Thus, the 7 of us became the newest students of Rosehoof Academy. That was brilliant, Glory gushed as we trotted by Bronco sentries urging us to get to class. How did you think of that? Do you have any idea how much time I spent in detention? I asked her with a grin. Oh, she suddenly went red. I blinked at her and then grinned. Let me guess. Your first time? Well, yes. I put a hoof around her neck and pulled her close, grinning at her. Well then, let me give you some advice. Always sit in the back row. Always pass on notes. If the teacher asks what you're doing, answer it working, not studying. Oh, and remember, you have a bladder the size of a pea. You really were in detention a lot, Glory muttered with some worry as I lowered my hoof. She looked over at P-21. You were probably a much more diligent student, she said to him. I winced. Please don't bite her head off, I begged silently. Silently begged. Thankfully, he was in one of his more wistful moods and looked at her at the decaying library. No, but I would have been, he said as he looked down at a textbook showing two red striped zebras. I I thought they looked a bit like hooved candy canes myself. I looked at the caption beneath. The proditor, or traitors in the zebra tongue, were those few zebras willing and allowed to fight for Equestria against their own kind, using talismans to permanently alter their stripe color. They fought with distinction until being phased out due to security concerns after the Battle of Shatterhoof Ridge. I noticed the Crusaders were looking a bit nervous. What's up? I asked them. First day of school jitters? No, Allegro protested, trying to look tough. It's just, Adagio muttered, there's supposed to be ghosts here. I would have laughed, but then again I laughed when Scoodle had seemed frightened in the boneyard. Not again. Besides, with the wasteland, who knew what you might turn into? What you might run into, I'm sorry. Well, if there are, they'll have to get through me first, Sinatra said, looked a little more at ease. Sinatra looked a little more at ease, at least. Until our hall pass, using our hall passes, P-21, Glory, and the Crusaders dispersed from the classroom and set about looting anything edible, drinkable, or medical they can get their hooves on. If they found any armory in here, well, that showed just how hardcore cheerily made education prior to the bombs going off. Hardcore cheerily, holy crap. This left me alone in the second floor of the library, looking out over Brimstone's Fall. And we were doomed because I was going to have to come up with a plan. Me, the not smart pony. Brimstone's Fall wasn't much to look at, really. Just a round, jagged hole punched in the Badlands surface. It had been a gemstone mine. Then, during the height of the war, a dragon had fallen right on top of the mine workings. The Shadowbolts Pegasus strike force, along with heavy ground support, slew the powerful dragon allied with the zebras, but hundreds of soldiers had died before the dragon perished. I knew all of this because there was a framed news article next to the window. In 200 years, it hadn't changed much. It lay right beside the rail line stretching to the southwest, towards Philadelphia. On the surface were large administration buildings and two long barracks-style houses. Since I didn't see any slaves, I assumed they all had to be quartered underground. Two nested chain link fences, topped by razor wires, surrounded the whole and the three buildings, with a guarded hoof bridge built over the rail spurs where they passed through the fences. A chain link gate blocked the space under the bridge. Maybe we could find... The fuck? I stopped and stared at the corner of the room. Had something just moved? One of the Crusaders playing a trick on me? My mind finally cracking? Slowly, I rose my hooves and checked my EFS. Nothing. My eyes scanned the room slowly, making my mane itch. Huh, I muttered. Nothing at all. Bullshit. In the wasteland, it's never nothing. I put my back to the wall until the others returned. It happened again. I swear I'd seen some dingy paper shift on their own right before the six entered the room. I rubbed my eyes, but then the others were inside. You okay? You look spooked, P-21 said, concerned, before he tossed me a Sparkle Cola. I caught it with my magic and deftly popped the top. It was warm, but it was Sparkle Cola. Yeah, just trying to figure out how to get in there, I said as I scanned the mine once again for some chink in their defense. The guards moved in threes and fours. There wasn't the slightest bit of cover to use to approach from the ground. And then there were the neighbors. Along the highway between the mine and the road was a strip mall. Most of the shops seemed more or less intact, and there was a large gathering of ponies there, at least 20 or so. Allegro? Who's that? He trotted to the window and I held the binoculars for him. Oh, them. Pecos. They're just a gang out of flank, not as crazy as raiders. They usually work protection for the slavers. Great. Between the Pecos and the slavers, I was looking at 40 or 50 enemies. They're not slavers? Medley huffed. I told you, but no one listens to me. Slavers gots to have a license out of paradise to be slavers. Otherwise, they just make slaves out of each other. The licenses are, like, super expensive. Explains why they could afford Explains why they could afford my bounty. I said as I pursed my lips, then frowned as I watched the train come out of the mine. It was only 4 cars, which were being hauled by a dozen slaves as the slaver liberally lashed them with a whip. To my amazement, I saw several zebras among the slaves. I suppose slavers can't be choosers. The train slowed to a crawl as it passed under the bridge. The guards above swept the weapons while 2 ponies checked beneath for escapees. Once past the checkpoint, the train started to crawl towards Hoofington. Where are they going? Tracks lead to the tunnels. Ain't safe down there. Ghouls and worse. Not sure where they go past that. Allegro said with his own curious frown. I chewed on a hoof and looked down at the strip mall again. If I attacked the mine, then the Pecos would reinforce the slaver guards. If I attacked the Pecos and lived, the mine would be alert. I looked from pony to pony. They all wore cowpony hats and leather jackets with some twisters or tornado patches on the back. Better yet, the gang was co-ed. Oh yeah. I smirked. Hey, P-21, think you can sneak down and snag me a hat and jacket? Why? What are you planning? He asked with a frown. Something not too smart. Well, if we're going to be stuck in detention all day, at least one of us needs to be in a gang. It took P-21 some time to get the garments I needed. But that was fine. I asked the Crusaders every bit of trivia on the Pecos I could. The gang had muscle, pride, ambition, and not much else going for it. Not quite a joke, but definitely a long way from the top of the gang food chain. The sun was just starting to set when the train returned. Lots of empty boxes and crates. Apparently, the trade was all one way. Did the gems go back to paradise or somewhere else? As I waited, Gloria and the Crusaders went to look for more supplies. That left me alone with my thoughts. The plan wasn't quite together yet. I wanted the slavers out of operation, but niggling questions kept popping up. What'd stop another band from returning to the mines? I could blow the mines, assuming P-21 had the skills, and the mine had the dynamite. What about the slavers? What about the slaves that had nowhere to go? Sending them the stock card was hardly a sure bet, and sending them anywhere else would be making them bait for raiders or more slavers. And I was not alone. I could feel it. My mane went nuts, and I slowly looked around the room once more. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't hear anything. I still didn't think I was alone. I rose to my hooves, looking at the overturned desks and bookshelves and cubbies. The teacher's desk. I trotted over to stand right in front of it with a small frown. My horn glowed as I shoved the large desk back against the wall as hard as I could. Something shimmered faintly as hooves clattered on the teacher's desktop. Then a long, thin rifle barrel appeared from thin air, pressing right against my forehead. This close, I could make out the faintest blurs in the air. Hey, you've had hours to shoot me in the back. So what's up? No response, and the rifle continued to press just underneath my horn. I didn't blink, and somehow I doubted they did either. There was a blue flash, and a shimmering gray cloak appeared, draped around a lithe equine. A lithe striped equine. He reached up with a hoof and brushed the hood of his cloak back to look down at me with deep azure eyes. I had to admit I was impressed and scared out of my gourd at the same time. I also didn't dare show it with the rifle to my head. He held it in his forehooves in the strangest way I'd ever imagined, yet without the slightest bit of strain, his mouth resting lightly on the trigger. I wasn't sure how he avoided falling on his face, balancing on just his back legs. Blackjack, I said, gesturing to myself, and I really hope I don't have to talk slow, 'cause then I'll really look dumb. I added. His voice was just as soft as P-21 on his Sturley days. Lancer. Name? Occupation? Hobby? Okay. Lancer. Like I said, I don't think you want to kill me. I'd rather not kill you. Liar, he said quietly. All ponies do. It is what you live for. Of all the shit going on in my life, you're telling me I'm going to get killed over a war that was over 2 centuries ago? The war is not over. The remnant persists. He answered. Right, I groaned as I folded my hooves on the desktop, rested my chin on them, and closed my eyes with a sigh. Who's holding a rifle against to whose head? Who pushed a desk rather than firing a gun? I don't want to fight you, particularly since he could turn invisible and had a rifle longer than my body pressed to my noggin. Those were pretty impressive liabilities to overcome. I was taking a good long look at the weapon while trying not to go cross-eyed. You're going to make me do something stupid, aren't you, Lancer? The sound of Glory and the Crusaders, and possibly P-21 as well, because he's silent as a mouse, returning made his eyes dart to the door. Yep, time for stupid. My horn flashed as I deftly pressed what I prayed was a magazine eject, while my magic ratcheted back on the bolt and ejected the round in the chamber. Then I caught the shell with my mouth and beamed him right in the face with a heavy bullet. My hooves on the desk shot out and yanked his rear hooves out from under him. He recovered quickly. Damn, didn't he though? He flipped through the air, catching the fallen magazine with his hoof and slamming it back into the weapon as he landed on all 4 hooves. The rifle lay on his back, his tail curling around the trigger as he sighted along the underside of the rifle. Then he felt the barrel of my shotgun press against the underside of his chin, and his eyes glanced down at the glowing weapon. I do not want to kill you, I said quietly, but I would, and damn him if he forces me to use P-21's universal counterattack policy from here on. Lancer slowly pointed the rifle away, looking surprised for a moment. I took my gun off him. As Glory's hooves reached the door, I said loudly, I have company, Glory. Please don't spook him. He's very good with the rifle. Glory frowned as she poked her head through the door. Oh, she said delicately, eyes wide in shock as she laid her eyes on Lancer. Slowly he backed up, keeping his rifle roughly between the two of us. Oh. The Crusaders immediately took cover. Right. So, like I said, I don't want to kill you. I'm pretty sure you don't want to kill me. I looked out the window and gestured to the mine to the mine with my head. In fact, I bet you came here for the same reason. I bet you're here for the same reason I am. Free the slaves? He didn't nod. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. I covered my face with my hooves, groaning. Ugh. Would you just trust me? I would not be opposed to seeing my people return to freedom. He finally answered, Progress! Progress is good. Okay, so I'm trying to get a plan together. A zebra with a gun like that would fit in very nicely. I had no clue how, but I'd like to know if he'd cooperate at all. Do you serve the stars? He asked me bluntly. What? I've never even seen the stars with my own eyes, or the sun, or the moon. All I've ever seen is that. I pointed out the window at the cloud layer. Then who do you serve? As calmly as he said it, I was pretty sure that my answer might lead to me getting shot soon. I really did not want to get shot by that rifle. Of all the ponies in the wasteland, you had to ask me a philosophical question. You should know that I'm not something of an idiot, I said, hoping for a reaction. A laugh? A smile? Nothing. Great, I sighed, closing my eyes. I don't know if there's if there's a who anymore, but I guess I serve a what? Doing better. Making things better, I said as I looked at him. If that's not good enough or specific enough, then I'm sorry. I didn't know there was going to be an oral exam today. He straightened and I relaxed as he sat and directed the rifle at the ceiling. It is sufficient, he said calmly. How do you plan on freeing the slaves? Well, that depends if P-21 had any luck shopping, I said as I leaned over to look past Glory at the blue pony, who looked positively stunned at the sight of the zebra in our detention room. I hadn't seen his eyes go that big since Prince Splendid. Oh, he's got the hots for Lancer. Too bad it won't last long. Since he saw Prince Splendid, I smiled at him. Hey, P-21, this is Lancer. He's been very nice to not shoot me. Please be nice back. He sat down a jacket and a beaten-up cow pony hat, and some boots. Oh, I'll try. And he did. He actually managed to smile. Hey. Lancer did not respond. Apparently zebras had a stoicism thing. At least Lancer certainly did. The hat and jacket had clearly seen better days. I shucked my security barding and shrugged into the jacket. I really hoped the material came from something other than Brahmin, or worse. Oh, step too far. I looked at Glory. So, here's the plan. I'm going to go down there and find out just how keen those pecos are on protecting the mine. If things go bad, I'd like you on the roof of that building at the end. If I have to bolt, some covering fire will be great. You realize that the pecos wouldn't blink at killing you for the bounty, right? P-21 asked. I heard them talking. Apparently the only thing keeping them from running off looking for you is their deal here with the mine. I could use that as a plan B if I had to. I figured as much. But if their leader's smart, I might be able to give him a better long-term agreement. No, yeah, it's arrangement. Sorry. Oh man. I had to saw the back of one of the boots apart to get the fit over my pit buck. Fortunately, Glory had some duct tape that closed it up. Hey, in the wasteland, beggars couldn't be choosers. I unzipped the duffel bag. Okay, alcohol, booze, cigarettes. If you pick them up anywhere, put them in here. I'm going to need them to make myself pretty popular on short notice. P-21 and Glory went through their saddlebags and produced a fair enough amount of the things I asked for. Where'd you find all that? I asked as I looked at the half-empty bottles of scotch and cartons of cigarettes. Teacher's lounge. Of course. P-21 replied, not quite taking his eyes off Lancer in the corner. Okay, it's getting dark. I'll start down now. If you see me running, do what you can to keep them off me, I said to Glory. The gray Pegasus beamed brightly and nodded once. P-21 nodded as well. Lancer just stared. I set my bag across my shoulders and floated up my shotgun as I headed for the stairs down. Blackjack, hissed Sonata from the filly's bathroom, her eyes wide as she glanced through the door at Lancer. You shouldn't trust him. Why? Because he's a zebra? I asked with a little half smile. He's a bad zebra. The remnants. They do terrible things, Blackjack. The filly said as she shivered. We can't stay here. As soon as we can, we're gonna run. Robots won't chase us as far if they catch us at all. But where will you go? We got a place over near Chapel. We'll head there. She pointed with the hoof along the railroad tracks. I glanced back at Lancer again, and as he looked coolly down at the textbook I glanced at earlier before kicking it aside. Maybe she was right, but I needed all the help I could get. Okay, Sonata. I'll remember what you said. Blah. I stepped back and let her run down the hall towards the stairs. The other three peeled out of their hiding places to follow her. Great. And now my mane was itching again. I am not a smart pony. For example, none of my plans are completely pulled together. There are little gaps here and there that I have to fill in on the fly. Actually, if you look at all my plans, that's how they generally run. Nice strings of improvisation piecing together a tiny bit of solid reasoning. This plan was simple. Send the Pecos off on a wild parasite hunt to the north. It's not always just because my brain is being lazy, though. Sometimes it's because no matter how well you plan, you'll always hit that point where everything falls apart. Ugh, don't I know it. For instance, I wasn't even halfway to the strip mall before some pony started shooting. Again, it wasn't me. Again, it wasn't at me. The fact that some pony was shooting this close, though, certainly put the nice and simple plan behind determining just what was going on. My EFS gave me one clue: a big red bar and two amber non-hostiles. I put my rump in gear. As I raced across the scrubland towards the shooting. Escaped slaves? The Crusaders in trouble? Nope. Rad Scorpion. One every bit as big as a monster that nearly eaten glory in me in the gravel pit. Two ponies tried to return fire with a lever-action rifle and a revolver, but in the twilight their accuracy was a huge disadvantage. Me? I had enough radiation in me that I knew exactly what I was aiming at. Yeah! I shouted as I raced towards the scene. Just in time, too. As it got close, the monster knocked one of the ponies down with a swipe of a huge claw. Here! Come here! I didn't even bother with buckshot, loading the slugs on the fly. The heavy shot battered and splattered its many eyes as I fired into its front as fast as I could. The heavy pincer snapped at me as I moved, but in the minimal armor of the Pecos outfit, I was able to leap aside while blasting it again with the shotgun. I laughed like a maniac, anything to keep its attention on me and off the fallen pony. The other, a unicorn with the lever action, wasted no time picking her shots. The magnum rounds fired by her rifle were almost as effective as my own slugs. With two targets so close, the red scorpion stung at one and pinched at the other. Finally, my luck worked out as the slug obliterated its skull. It collapsed into a twitching heap. Tumbleweed, you stung? The unicorn asked as she rushed to her fallen friend. The earth pony curled up in a ball, shaking. Shit! Damn it! I knew exactly how that felt. I got something for that, I said as I opened the duffel bag and pulled out some of Glory's antivenom. I jammed it into the poisoned pony's flank and pushed the plunger. She shook a little bit longer, then relaxed a touch. Antivenom. Never leave home without it. Thanks. How did you manage to dance around the critter? I'll never know. I can't see my hoof in front of my face. She complained as she searched around. I pushed the mirror glasses a little further up on my muzzle as I checked the earth pony's breathing. She seemed like she was doing better. What are you two doing out here? I asked. Before they could answer, a spotlight from one of the towers on the fence lit up and washed us in its harsh yellow glare. A voice over a loudspeaker said in mock sympathy, "Aw, I shouldn't have bet on the Scorp." There was laughter, and then the voice warned, "Get back in your hole, Pecos. Or get back to your hole, Pecos." A bullet smacked into the dirt at our hooves. Asshole. They were in range? I marveled, and then seethed. Assholes. Dang. Is there an echo in here? You must be new. Fish out of flank? She asked as we helped her friend get to her hooves and walk our way back to the tower. Yeah, name's Marigold, I replied. Dusty trails. This is Tumbleweed. She snorted as we picked our way towards the distant lights. I had little trouble, but the pair stumbled over the uneven ground. Would you want? Well, you want my advice? Keep walking. Being a pecco is hell out here. It's fun enough when you can strut around flank, but when you're getting screwed in the worst ways here. But we're getting screwed in the worst ways here. Oh yeah? My mane prickled like crazy. How so? You just saw it. Sidewinder's got his protection racket, but he gets the caps and we get left out here for weeks. We're supposed to deal with the trouble, but all we really get is bashed around by those bastards all the time. By those bastards at the mine. The critters in the waste, and any slaver looking to up their quota. The strip mall had to be getting its power from somewhere. As neon light poured into the cracked parking lot, it wasn't a town per se. I couldn't see ponies raising families here. It seemed more like a glorified hangout for the peccos. One large shop bore flickering neon letters, "Bill Pecco's Western Wear." The others were neon. The other was a neon bar named Twisters. In the middle was a liquor store looted long ago, a gun store, and barbershop. Seriously? I asked as we made our way towards the bar. You're supposed to be protecting them, but they'll snatch you up if you're alone? Yep. We're not licensed with Paradise. So better not be near the mine on your lonesome. They'll invite you in and never let you leave. She sighed. But being a Pecos is better than being solo. Or so I keep telling myself every damn day. I gave a grin and prayed to Celeste that she didn't ask me why I happened to be on my lonesome. I'm gonna go lay down, Dusty, Tumbleweed said. The brown mare giving me a grateful smile. Thanks for the medicine, ma'am. There was something in her vacuous eyes that bothered me. She kept twitching and swallowing. You sure you're okay? I asked, worried, watching her twitch as she made her way towards the apparel store. Yeah, probably just the poison, or something I ate, Dusty Trail said, the sandy-hided pony leading me towards the bar. Suddenly 3 bucks rolled out the door, kicking and biting each other. Dusty just stepped around them. Inside were ponies drinking, talking, hoof wrestling, or reading very ragged magazines. It was the cards being dealt, though, that drew my eye. You play? Dusty asked with a nod of her head. A bit, I said with a grin. A few minutes later, I settled at the table, passing around a bottle of whiskey and swapping cigarettes for poker chips. It wouldn't do for me to seem too ready to play, but once I settled in, I felt more relaxed than I had in days. Sure, any of these ponies would kill me for a huge bounty if they had a clue that I was security. But why worry about that now? 5 hands in, I wasn't winning, but I wasn't losing either. So what's your story, Dusty? My story? What am I, a 2-bit novel? She said with a chuckle. Nah, 5 bits at least, I said with a laugh. She joined my laugh as we drew new cards. Well, the name says it all. I was born to a caravan family. Soon as I could walk, we were roaming. Here to Friendship City, even Philadelphia, but that was years ago. She took 2, shuffling her hand back and forth, before raising. She then continued. He liked to say he specialized in ammunition, and he was happy to give out free samples to raiders. Then one day we did some business and found an armed grenade in his saddlebag. They came back and finished off the rest of us. I was only a year past my cutie mark, so they sold me in Paradise. You were a slave? I thought of a pony who had been a slave protecting other slavers was beyond comprehension. Something like that. Got picked up by a society pony. They like to call their slaves servants, but you're wearing an explosive collar all the same. Mostly it was used for sex and housekeeping for an old mare in the Applet family. Could have been a lot worse. I wasn't paying attention. My little pair was a joke to her three of a kind. When she died, her granddaughter didn't really know what to do with me. I didn't want me for sex, didn't need me for cleaning, so she just let me go. Sweet girl. Of course, unarmed and broke, I wasn't in real good position to survive long. Got in debt to one of the Urseries, the little pet ponies. Joined the Pecos to pay it off. I didn't really know what to say. I thought I'd gone through a lot in my week in the wasteland, but the reality was that I hadn't experienced anything. She was so matter of fact about the circumstances that led her to this point. I felt more confused than ever. Worse, it seemed I'd opened the door, one after the other. The Pecos were stepping through. A buck named Big Red, who was the smallest pony at the table, had been a horse and in flank. He'd nearly been sold for chems by his mother before running away. He'd bounced from gang to gang between Stockyard and Paradise before landing with the Pecos. Poleaxe had been a bandit, a slaver, and even ran with a Reaper gang, drifting from place to place as long as he'd lived. He also freely shared his sugar apple bombs with me. Yeah, he killed ponies, but it wasn't personal. It was work, and that's how he saw it. If he didn't work, then he was gonna die. And apparently, banditry and slaving was hard work. One mistake or misjudged a target, and you were dead. He didn't target foals, though. He preferred not to force mares. After all, one good kick and they could take his bets clean off. Yeah. His last band had gone raider. When they tried to get him to turn cannibal, he refused, and that put him on the menu instead. Now he was with the Pecos, because it was work. Arbinger claimed she had been an acolyte for the Steel Rangers, but that a Reaper attack gutted their bunker. She'd gotten lost and ended up on the west side of the river, and signed up with the Finders for a spell in Megamart. Eventually, she got bored and hooked up with the Pecos for some excitement. She'd been able to get the building's power from a still active subterranean power line. You mean there's still power in the city? That shocked me, given the devastation I saw all around us. How? No pony's gone into the core to figure it out. Any pony who doesn't come back. The Colony Gate thinks the spark turbines in Hoofington dams are providing power, but the controls are all wonked. Or maybe there's some power plant in the Badlands sending juice to the core, Arbinger said as she checked her cards. But yeah, they buried all kinds of stuff underground. Most folks don't realize it, but Hoofington's a fucking fortress. The whole city was designed by the best minds at the Ministry of Wartime Technology and Stabletech. The Zebras seemed so dead set on destroying the city that they had to. At the end of the war, Hoofington was getting attacked by the hour. Zebras wanted it bad, but they never took it, she explained as she drew 4 cards with a soft hiss of disappointment. Now the underground is school territory, and worse. Drives the Steel Rangers crazy, not being able to get all that tech buried down there. So, which stable did you grow up in, Marigold? Dusty asked me with a grin, just as I took a pull off a whiskey bottle. I choked, stinging alcohol burning my sinuses. Oh, ow! I don't drink, but I expect that's gonna be worse than having that. You know how that when you burp and you exhale through your nose right after it burns like hell? I expect it to way worse than that. Ow. I didn't even have a chance to lie. Knew it. For a moment, I was sure I was in trouble, but then realized no pony was screaming from my head. That obvious, huh? Still, ponies always ask questions. So what's your story? Not much. I was in my stable. Honestly, I have no idea where it is, which was the truth enough. It was somewhere north, but I'd be hard pressed to find it, even with my Pitbuck's navigation software. Overmare went nuts and tried to kill every pony in the stable. Also kind of true, given that she let Deus in and some raiders for her aggrandizement and survival. I managed to get out before every pony died. Been wandering ever since. Something was wrong. My head felt off. It's like my thinking was slowed down a little. Then I caught the sight of the slight glow of magic around Arbinger's horn. What are the odds that the Steel Ranger acolytes were taught interrogation spells? Was she reading my mind? If so, she had a poker face to die for. A truth spell? No, or I'd be a lot more accurate. A lie detection spell. Easiest to learn, even if I couldn't. And what did you do in your stable? Arbinger asked sweetly. I gave a non-committal shrug. Honestly, as little as I could. Played cards mostly. 99 was all but the overmare, and as long as I didn't cross her, I was in the clear. Technically true. I hoped that it was at least true enough for the spell. Since Arbinger looked disappointed, I assumed that I'd squeaked by. So why'd you join the Pecos? Dusty asked me. Technically, I hadn't. I don't know, really, I said, thinking. If I had to join the Pecos, why would I? Then I looked at the bottle of whiskey, the cards, and the ponies around me. Guess I wouldn't be lonely anymore. Have a life like I did in 99. Arbinger's horn finally stopped glowing, and I took a deep breath. Well, here's to your life. Hope it's worth it. A bit later, the game broke up as Big Red and Arbinger left. I needed a little bit of air, so I stepped outside and into a faint drizzle. Not even really rain. I looked down at my hooves. Was there still power underneath me? Even after 2 centuries after the bombing? Hoofington was like a country within a country. Lots of secrets are buried here. Hoofington's a fucking fortress. I looked to the north and at the faint green glow in the distance. Secrets. Why did it feel like EC-1101 was burning a hole in my leg? Ow. Sorry, my cat bit me. A buck lay on the porch outside Twister's, his muzzle pressed into a filthy plastic bag reeking of dung. He inhaled deeply over and over again, twitching. Dusty caught my look and chuckled. Yeah, believe it or not, he's supposed to be in charge here. Poor jackass is so hooked on Dash he's trying to get a buzz from huffing Brahmin shit. Can he do that? I asked in a tone of disgust. Nope, but it doesn't stop him from trying, Dusty said, closing her eyes and letting the rain play along her sand-colored face. So, I guess you're not one of the Sidewinder's more clueless spies. So you thought I was a spy? Showing up in the middle of the night, asking questions like you do? You're something, Dusty said with a grin as she looked up at the clouds. Not a bad night. Didn't get eaten by Radscorps. Got a new Pecos that's decent at cards. What more can a mare want? A life of her own? I asked as I looked at her speculatively. She caught my tone and looked at me. Dusty, how do you feel about slavery? Why do stable ponies ask the dumbest questions? She asked in turn with a sigh and a frown. It doesn't matter how I feel. Slavery happens. It's not even the worst thing that can happen to a pony. Ghouls losing their minds, going crazy and turning into cannibals, mutating into some creature, being torn in half by waste critters. There's 1,000 ways to die. There's 1,001 ways to die. Wearing a slave collar is somewhere in the middle of that list. But is it okay? I pressed. It happens. Who cares if I think it's okay? She retorted with a frown as I pressed my luck. There's nothing I can do about it. What if you could? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She stared at me, now looking scared. Who the fuck are you really? I just looked at her, pulling off my glasses and stared straight into her eyes. She shook her head slowly. No. Fuck. No. No, you're not. No fucking way. Yes, I am. And I'm going to do something about the mine. Just like I said I would. But I'm going to need help. I need your help. If you really don't care about slaves, then yell for the others. I wouldn't blame you, and I won't kill you. But if you want to do something about those slaves, then help me. No, I can't. Fuck. No. How? How the fuck can you do this? She hissed as she packed up, as she paced back and forth. You saved my fucking life. You saved Tumbleweed's too. How the... She clenched her eyes shut and then thumped the side of her head. This is some fucked up booze dream I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wake up right the fuck now. This ain't no booze dream, honey. I put a hoof on her shoulder. It's not a dream. It's a chance to do better. I can't guarantee it'll work. In fact, given how my plans usually go, I'd be fucking scared to death. But it's still a chance for a free life. For you. For those slaves in the mine. Dusty Trails closed her eyes, raised her face to the clouds, and the rain drizzled along her muzzle. Finally, she pulled off her hat and sighed as she glared at me. Fuck. Lots of profanity in this story. Oh well. It is Blackjack and it is Fallout. Equestria. Excuse me. Little star, little star, little star. The strip mall rang with shouts and cries as the Pecos scrambled to their hooves. Security had breached their defenses, shared their liquor, bypassed their interrogation attempts, and basically pissed in everybody's faces. Ew. Right now, the night was filled with cries for the 100,000 bottle cap mares head, and they scattered to the north and east in a vengeful frenzy. A lone spotlight opened up and swept across the empty buildings in an almost forlorn fashion, as if stung there'd been a party and they couldn't attend. There was such a rush for vengeance and money by those certain that security was off east towards flank that no pony thought to check along the railroad tracks just north of the ruined little strip mall. The sound of the nighttime drizzle, now punctuated by the occasional shout and gunshot, gave way to the grinding of rusty wheels on rusty metal and the snap of a whip on sweaty ponies' backs. The incoming train rattled and banged its way towards the mine. The sound of the pulling slaves. The sound of the pulling slaves' hooves from the track until the cry of "Rocks!" filled the air, and the pullers began stumbling. The whipmaster immediately grabbed a wheel next to her seat with her magic and spun it as fast as she could. Rusty squeals filled the night air. "Move them, you worthless slugs! Move them!" The brakes were released, and the rail cars began crawling slowly along as the lead buck shoved rocks off the tracks, and the rest continued to pull the empty flat cars forward. With only a few hundred yards to the spur mine, there was no time to build up their earlier momentum, and the cars crept slowly past the tumbled stones on the tracks and onto the spur. The gate on the incoming track opened and the cars began passing under the bridge. Spotlights slowly swept back and forth over the cars and across the interior field of the yard. One or two guards gave a... I'm sorry, it's like 2 in the morning, sorry. One of the guards gave a cursory glance underneath the flat cars, but her hard magical glare of the spotlight ruined any night vision they could have had. Once the train came to a stop, half the guards detached the slave ponies while the rest headed to the 2 long barracks, glad for the night's rest. Apparently 3 trips in a day was exceptionally productive for them. Some of the spotlights winked out. Others turned back towards the wasteland. Carefully, the 4 of us crept out one after another. We quickly moved to the dark administration building. If I were a slave owner, I'd keep my guns as far away from my own guards and as from the slaves. Just inside the door was a meeting room with 2 bored guards. Lancer's rifle made soft little psst, 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 and and they turned into two dead guards. I resolved to never, ever annoy a zebra who could make two ponies dead before the first one even started falling. We moved inside before some ponies spotted us. P-21 and Glory went to work looting anything potentially valuable as I made my way up the stairs. Green light shone through an open door as the pony frantically typed on the terminal. I don't care how much Sanguine wants. I'll sell for half the price if he takes that thing out of here, I heard a pony whisper hoarsely. I peeked in, but saw only a fat pony typing his message, and a filthy cobalt mare wearing a black collar and chained to the wall beside the bed. I carefully opened the door. The mare looked at me as I held my baton to my lips. She looked at me, looked at him, then made a quiet motion with her hooves slamming together. Was she telling me to beat him up? Gladly. Wait. He wore something on his hoof. Too small to be a pit buck. What if it was some kind of alarm? He turned to spot me in my security barding, and his hoof reached for the band. Sats popped up and immediately I targeted 4 strikes, praying I didn't kill him. Not that in this case I'd be fussed with if he expired, but I had questions. In rapid succession, I slammed the baton twice against each of his front fetlocks, and was rewarded with crunches of splintering bone. He cried out, wetting himself as he curled up in the fetal position. "You're going to get us all killed," he whimpered as his broken leg shook. Whatever the device was on his hoof, it was a lot less resilient than my pit buck. Isn't that line supposed to be, you're going to get all of us killed? I asked as I searched his desk and found a key to the shackles of the mare. "He's talking about Gorgon," she said as I freed her. "He's taken over the mining's operations, demands huge output. I don't know what he is, but he's a monster." The mare rubbed where the shackles had chafed her forelegs raw. Please tell me you can take this off," she asked as she pointed to the collar she wore. "What is it?" I asked, looking closely with a small frown. "A bomb," she replied. Instantly, I wasn't looking nearly so closely. "A bomb? Why the fuck would you put a bomb around someone you screw?" "A what?" I stared. No, sorry. "A bomb?" I stared at the black collar and then hissed at the fat buck. "Why the fuck would you put a bomb on someone you screw?" The mare gave a sigh, but also a small smile as she explained. "It keeps us from running away. Get too far and boom. Can you deactivate it?" "Deactivate it? I didn't even want to breathe hard on it." I shook my head and sighed. Too much to hope for. Somehow I found the prospect of fighting something that had the slavers scared witless was a little concerning. "What is Gorgon?" I asked Sorry. I asked the mare as I hauled the fat, whimpering buck into her place and chained him by his back legs. "Is he a reaper?" "Just what I need. Another cyberpony monster to get blown up by." While she spoke, I went over to the terminal and transferred what files I could onto my pit buck. The bastard had mentioned sanguine. We were going to talk about that later. Searching his desk, I found a stack of caps and 2 glowing memory orbs. All of them are deposited in my bag. "He's... I don't know. He's strong and bulletproof," she said. I nodded and listened. If slugs wouldn't cut it, maybe grenades? They seemed incredibly effective when used internally. He also has a spell, I guess. It looks at you and turns you into stone. Into stone? Okay, that just bumped him above Deus from the what the fuckometer. The what the fuckometer. A few days ago, I would have laughed at such a claim. 41 young ponies later, I admitted that he could probably do exactly what she said. So, strong, bulletproof, turns ponies into stone. Anything else? "He can fly?" the mare offered. I face-hoofed. I just had to ask. I pointed at the mine I pointed at the mine boss. Please stand on him and make sure he doesn't try anything. Downstairs, I found P-21 picking at the lock of a door. A half-dozen bobby pins lay scattered around him as he grit his teeth and scraped at the lock. His blue eyes swore a death oath to the door and the lock. Then there was a soft snap as the metal broke in his teeth. "Allow me," I said as I flipped the mine boss's key to the lock and opened it. From the look he gave me, I violated some lockpicker's code of ethics. Inside, however, we were greeted by quite the little arsenal. Assault carbines, another shotgun, more ammunition that I happily dumped into my bags and let my pip buck reorganize. Then there were energy cartridges for glory and a strange, pointy pistol-like object that smelled of ozone. So I guess it was an energy weapon. I tossed it to her as well, and she gave it a little squee and immediately swapped out one beam pistol for the new weapon. "Do I want to know?" I asked as I tied the carbines together to make them easier to carry across my back. P-21 clenched his eyes shut and dropped as he dropped a few automatic pistols and a revolver into his bag. I'd have to carry the ammo, I knew. Lancer watched the door, utterly disinterested in our looting. "It's a disintegration pistol. Pistol. It magically breaks down the bonds." She faltered at the "I'm not a smart pony" look. "Well, they do more damage than energy beams. There's a chance it could start a chain reaction that will, well, disintegrate things." "Good. You almost lost me at the word reaction," I said as we finished clearing out the armory. Glory spotted a medical container that had a few healing potions, but far more chems. "Just take it all. No idea if it'd come in useful or not when things got rolling." "Lancer, have you ever heard of a pony named Gorgon?" No reaction. I take that as a no. "Glory?" She shook her head. "Okay, apparently there's a something here named Gorgon. He's strong, he's bulletproof, he can fly, he can turn into stone with a look." Even Lancer was taken aback by that. "Fuck me," Glory muttered softly, then blinked and went bright red as she looked at her hooves. "Sorry, that's my line," I grinned. "Aw, Blackjack's rubbing off on Glory." "No, not like that, you perverts." Later. "That's my line," I grinned at her. "Anyway, I just wanted to warn you. He's in the mine, so dynamite and internal grenades if we can swing it." I looked at P-21. He nodded. Zappy disintegration fun from above. "Oh, zappy disintegration fun from above." I'm gonna stop being racist now. Glory, still embarrassed, gave a nod. "Shoot him in the eye?" I asked Lancer. He looked thoughtful and then nodded stiffly, seeming quite put out by taking a suggestion from me. If all that doesn't work, I'll try something stupid." Both Glory and P-21 winced. "That's your plan?" Lancer asked skeptically. "Good one, ain't it? Lots of flexibility." Now he had a definite expression. Worry. It looked good on him. His stoic mask was getting old. We dragged the bodies into the arsenal and locked them inside. Wiped up the blood as well as we could, then made our way quietly to the mouth of the mine. A barricade had been built across the entrance to the sloping tunnel that led underground. Once again, the mine boss's key expedited our entrance, much to P-21's chagrin. I passed him the key once we were inside. Just think of them as really accurate lockpicks, or I could think of them as keys, he replied sourly as we slipped into the mine. "Cheer up, we're facing a monster. No moral angsting here." He gave me a little smirk. "Oh yeah? What if it turned out he was tragically transformed into a monster and only wants to be normal and loved?" "Oh, I hadn't thought of that." "Don't worry, you mean a legitimate monster pony, eventually." I won't say when, but most of you probably know because you've read it already. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. And suddenly the niggling thoughts began to rise in the back of my mind. Maybe we should talk first, But P-21 suddenly stopped smiling as I reached up and turned my head to look at the side of the tunnel. Broken statues was my first impression. The most horribly accurate pony statues ever carved. Their faces were frozen in expressions of absolute horror and pain. Right. I grabbed those niggling little thoughts, wrapped them in duct tape, and tossed them into the closet. We found a guard station and 4 guards behind a second barricade. The sounds of machinery and grinding rock reverberated in the air, making sneaking almost unnecessary. The lighting must have been abysmal to any pony without mutated eyes. Really, it was more of an excuse than an attack. Of execution than an attack. With the exception that there was a large red button next to them. I didn't know what the button was connected to. Alarm? Lockdown? Detonate slave collars? Can you resist the temptation of the shiny red button? Can you? Can you, Blackjack? I just knew I didn't want to find out just now. Aww. Lancer's silenced rifle took down the one closest to the button. Glory strafed with red beams for one pistol, and slower moving pink bolts from the other. The remaining guards scrambled for weapons and hit the alarm, but my buckshot tore into them equally. No pony reached the button, and thanks to our barrage, no pony would. P-21 searched through the remains, and I stared at the red button on the wall, chewing my hoof. What did it do? Stop staring at the button, Blackjack, P-21 said without looking up. What? I wasn't. I hoofed and made a big show of checking my shotgun. When we were ready to move on, I glanced at the button again. Someday. Alarm? Self-defense? Self-destruct device? Buzzer? Decoration? Og! Charlie Brown Og. This calls a Wilhelm scream. Splat. My mood now thoroughly ruined by the thought of being transformed into a horrified statue, and thus being prevented from ever discovering the function of the mysterious button. That is why you're disappointed, Blackjack? The function of a button? Oh, I can't blame you. Okay, let's continue, shall we? I slogged ahead in the lead, keeping an eye out for... Oh, hello! The chamber was a massive dome, pierced by a round hole at its apex. On the ground, white bones lay amid encrusted stones. Strange pink and green energy seemed to bleed slowly into the rock. Crawling amid the immense slabs of stone were dozens and dozens of ponies and zebras. A squad of guards bored down into the blocks using some kind of drill. Some said explosives, and blasted them chunk by chunk into smaller pieces. These were loaded onto smaller flatbed mine carts, and then pushed up one ramp by mares to a stone platform, ringing a chamber, and dumped into a shaking metal ramp that fed into a rock crusher. The crusher fed a convoy belt, a conveyor belt that ran up. I'm sorry. The crusher fed a conveyor belt that ran up to the hole in the roof. Young ponies, many of whom didn't even have their cutie marks, were running up and down the belt, pulling brightly colored gemstones from the gravel. Some pony had thought of a mining system that effectively used foals in the production process. Some pony needed to meet Mr. Baton. Everywhere we looked were statues of ponies frozen in positions of agony. A few appeared to have been guards rather than slaves. The guards weren't guarding; they were working. Some looked as ragged as the slaves, they were probably supposed to be watching. I felt a small sense of justice at work, but no pony or zebra deserved this. Uh, and there, lying atop the softly glowing bones, overlooking the whole mining pit, was Gorgon. Very first, I might have mistaken him for a white Pegasus, then realized that whatever he was, it wasn't a pony. His wings weren't soft and feathery like Glory's, but instead they were leathery. He had scales along his spine and flank, and a long serpentine tail swayed back and forth behind him. For the first time ever, I saw a pony with eyes that glowed exactly like mine. I knew what they did because they were looking at me right now. Gorgon rose to his hooves, stretching languidly. First his bleached white wings, and then his powerful legs. "Scatter!" I yelled, barely audible over the din of the machinery and in the booming cavity. He launched himself into the air as we separated, landing with a thunderous crash where we'd stood moments before. I didn't target him. I simply fired wherever I thought he was and prayed Celestia I didn't hit somebody else. I stole little glances as I could, dancing around on the broad stone ledge. The ponies up here ran for cover, but the ones below continued working. Glory fired a stream of energy bolts. A stream of energy bolts from above that seemed moderately more effective than my shotgun shells. I tossed the carbines on my back I tossed the carbines on my back and at the feet of the two mares. "Take them!" I yelled. The dust-colored ponies simply looked at me in horror and shook their heads. They actually grabbed pickaxes and resumed trying to gorge gems from the walls around the ledges. They were so scatterbrained they were so scared they didn't dare stop working. Even working to death was better than being turned to stone. My shotgun was useless at his rampage, so I flipped it behind my back and drew one of the automatic assault carbines. I marveled as my pit buck provided a clip of interesting, armor-piercing rounds. My curiosity was piqued and looked at the solid jacket bullets. I didn't have many from the armory, but maybe I wouldn't need that many. I flicked the fire select switch to burst mode. Then my eyes picked out Gorgon and Glory's shapes as they flew around the jagged dragon bones heaped in the center. When Gorgon came to view, I gave a SATS guided shot instead of burst to his head. They didn't even seem to penetrate. The fuck is he made of? I shouted, ejecting the clips and moving the green rounds. I bit my lip as he came around again. I had enough SATS for one burst. The toxic rounds just dripped off his hide. Glory clipped the side of a spur with a bone, the tip of a spur of bone, jerking in midair. Gorgon caught her in his hooves and landed on the far side of the pit. His glowing eyes stared into hers, and I watched as I saw her writhe. I'd never imagined turning to stone would be slow. Her equipment and violet mane were turned first. Then her limbs froze in their twisted state, and finally her head finished in still alabaster. "Lancer, please tell me you can shoot him in the eye," I thought as he took to the air once again. I raced past the still laboring ponies as I made my way to her. No one looked at me. No one dared stop working with Gorgon still alive. Some of the workers were fresh statues as well, having been turned to stone when Gorgon was still having been turned to stone by accident for watching our fight. Suddenly, I heard muffled booms over the din of the machinery. P-21 demonstrated his affinity for explosives by tossing dynamite as quickly as he could pop the brass caps. When Gorgon landed and advanced, P-21 blacked away, throwing mines in his path. The monster didn't even try to step around them. The explosion scuffed his scaly hide, and not much more. I raced up as quickly as I could to help. Maybe I could stick a stick of dynamite up his scaly ass. Where it was, I ran into a stone wall. No, make that an invisible stone wall. My head spun for a moment before I looked up. I reached out with the hoof and saw a faint shimmer. Apparently, being turned to stone hadn't disrupted the enchantment in his cloak. I looked through the petrified zebra, watching as P-21 was transformed into a statue as well. Monsters. Deus was a monster. Gorgon was one too. My weapons were useless against monsters like him. How was I supposed to fight something like this? The only thing I could do was see, which would probably kill me. Then I looked at the magic lights illuminating the space. My mane began to itch. Fuck. Something stupid then. Oh well. It worked before, right? I immediately began to take out every light I could. With each detonation, more and more darkness claimed the interior. As the darkness spread, I saw Gorgon begin searching. He couldn't see in the dark. Finally, I had something going for me. I had something going for me. I couldn't plunge the entire room into darkness. Radiation from the dragon's remains provided some illumination. I need some way to kill him. I looked at the pile of dragon bones in the middle of the room. They withstood 2 centuries of mining around them. No, I needed another edge. Something to avoid being turned into stone. Gun had been my edge against Deus. Deus! Oh shit, would that work? My mane itched like mad. Deus and Gorgon were both monsterponies like what you'd never seen. The boss had mentioned sanguine. Maybe. I trotted into the gloom, hearing Gorgon's wings whoosh even over the grinding machinery. Gorgon was bulletproof, beam-proof, and bomb-proof, and I hoped he was as cocky as I'd be if I were him. I moved to the nearest edge and turned on my pip buck, bringing up the file EC1101 to the top. The letters should be a nice bright lure in the gloom. They were. Gorgon landed in front of me, and our eyes met. Instantly, I felt the needle stab through my eye socket and into my body. I felt as if every inch of my body were slowly pinched off cell by cell. I couldn't look away if I wanted to, but I could scream. You see this? Sanguine wants this, I yelled right into Gorgon's face, and for the first time since the battle started, he balked. You turned it into stone, and Data is fucked. I had no idea if that was true or not, but all I could hope was that he didn't know either. The sensation abruptly reversed, and I swayed on my hooves for a moment. That was a sensation I'd happily avoid. I pulled out my baton and back to my hooves touched the edge. I knew there were lots of nice jagged pieces of dragon bone down there. Come on, you want it? You have to take my leg first. Okay. I had no idea if he could hear me over the din, but from the smile blooming on his face, I guessed he could. He charged. A reckless, full frontal assault only an impregnable abomination would undertake. I didn't swing the baton. I threw it right at his head. Whether through reflex or annoyance, he closed his eyes before ramming into me. I knew he probably planned on winging me away to the nearest limb. I knew he probably planned on winging me away to tear me limb from limb. Only this time, not only did I grab his scaly hide with all 4 hooves, I used every bit of magic I could to hold his wings in place. We tumbled end over end over the edge, and landed on a wide metal slide covered in rock chunks being fed into a rock crusher. Gorgon looked down at me and pulled back his foreleg, slamming it down with enough force to turning the rock next to my head into a stinging powder. I didn't let go as we rolled back and forth over the rolling, tumbling rocks. A second kick grazed the side of my head, and only that helmet Keystone had given me kept my skull from being pulped. His wings struggled for freedom as he fought to get airborne once more. I gripped him as tightly as I could, not giving him the leverage. He struggled against the flow as the angle increased. I shoved hard, forcing myself a foot or two above him. I saw the first signs of fear in Gorgon's eyes. His scream was muted by the roar beneath us as his long snake-like tail was caught in the grinding teeth of the rock crusher. Not even I could hold him then, but now I didn't have to. I kicked and shoved and did as best I could to keep him under me. "No, you don't!" I screamed, not caring if only Celestia heard. As rocks battered both of us, the working jaws and flow of stone pulled him down inch by inch. Hooves slammed into the teeth, and for a moment I feared he might actually break the mechanism. Then one of them caught in the pumping jaws, and there was a resounding pop. I heard that scream. I stomped my hooves into his face, watching as the heavy iron jaws of the rock crusher turned red with muddy pulp. Inch by inch he was fed through into the machine, and it was all I could do to keep him beneath me. I clawed up the stream of rocks as the poor foals continued their labor, kicking wildly as popping fragments and flailing hooves battered at my barding. Some mechanism within gave a yank, and his chest disappeared into the gap. His teeth slammed down with a dry explosion of ribs, his mouth opening wide as bloody organs spewed out over my legs. Ew. So I guess he was like the toothpaste tube and his organs were the toothpaste. Wow. I just made that up right now. And I can barely keep my eyes open. Holy crap. Yeah. Over my legs. The jaws withdrew, and Gorgon's glowing eyes stared at me for one final moment before the jaws slammed shut. His skull was just another rock. Like a boss. Unfortunately, now I struggled to keep myself out of those jaws myself. I kept imagining a great big red button marked emergency shutoff. I hate to admit it, but I was getting tired. All I would need is one rock to pin my leg or one crack to my head. I wondered if I'd go through as well as these poor bastards would just keep working, never realizing the monster was dead. Then wings beat above me. I felt hooves hook into my barding. I glanced back at the gloriosity of morning glory as the Pegasus lifted me from the crusher's feeder and into the air above the work pit. The conveyor belt to the surface was a ribbon of pulped Gorgon. If he regenerates from that, I quit, I said. At least, I hoped I said it. My ears were filling with the endless ringing and throbbing. Oh, come on. The fire alarm at my school was blotted in that shit. And I stood right underneath that thing and didn't complain one bit, you pussy. No, I'm playing. That's rock crushing stuff is loud. You will see how here soon. Tessie! Sorry, my cat's being spastic at 2 in the morning. Gah. Glory set us down, and I saw that Gorgon's demise had finally spread to the workers. The unicorns were arming themselves with carbines. The earth ponies took up revolvers. I looked around for the guard workers, but saw that they had a complete change of heart after being on the receiving end. There were a few lips moving from my hands, from my friends, not my not petrified friends. Indeed, many of the petrified ponies were once more free to move around. Broken stone ponies, though, remained broken stone. So wait, if they chip a little piece of your mane off of your head when you're in stone, will that kill you? 'Cause broken stone, the hell. Oh well. The workers used strange hoof signals I didn't understand as we made our way up the pit. I enjoyed the sensation of Manek's painkillers, accompanied by a healing potion. I really could have used a sparkle cola, but given how these slaves around us appeared, it would have been crude. We reached the barricade, and I looked at that bright red button with a parting sigh. We stepped into the drizzling night. The guards had gathered, looking unsure of what to do when we emerged. Most of the slaves were exhausted. Many had multiple injuries. All of them were hungry. Few were trained in firearms. Some ponies, the guards apparently included, based on how they began rallying, might with how they rally, might think that that would put the slaves at a disadvantage against the 20 or so armed, healthy, rested guards that remained. They would be right, except such a pony had likely never imagined the absolute rage a pony could feel when armed and facing their tormentors. Holy shit. I know that feeling. It is glorious. Glorious vengeance. Drink beer from the skulls of our enemies. Or vodka. I found this vodka. It is rarity flavored, I swear. No, I don't drink. Okay, maybe a little bit. Except tormentors, yeah. Even then, with the guards outnumbered 3 to 1, the fight that ensued was vicious. Glory strafed the few snappers that tried to pick off the freed slaves from the towers along the wall. P-21 restrained himself from using explosives. Instead, he raced around from side to side of the battle, shouting directions and gesturing to the slaves to return fire. When the bullets ran out, the guns became clubs. Then the Pecos arrived. 30 or so gang members surged down the rail line and under the bridge. The gate having been quickly smashed open, the slavers bolstered and readied themselves to put down the uprising once and for all. Across the fighting, my eyes met dusty trails. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't hear anything. I could only hope. The Pecos crashed into the backs of the slavers and took them out in one charging wave. The nasty final moments involved a few desiccated hoof-to-hoof fights. Desperate hoof-to-hoof fights. Then, it was over. Dusty Trails and the other Pecos helped deal with wounded slaves. Whatever guards had been in the mine, they'd shed their uniforms by now. Any allegiance to the old mine was forsaken. When it was over, I yelled for P-21 to find the pantry and get them fed, and Glory to get what she could to help the injured. Dusty Trails directed the Pecos to take positions in the guard towers. There were other things in the wasteland to be wary of. I had no idea just where Lancer had gone, nor did I want to know. Nor did I know what I would have had him do. The dozen or so zebras stood apart from the others, watching the development with trepidation. I rubbed my ear furiously, trying to get rid of the ringing as I approached them. Hey, rough night, huh? They glanced at each other and made gestures. Then I realized that every single one of them was deaf. An elder approached, bowed formally to me, then said in an odd accent, "We thank you. We cannot hear your words. We must read them on your lips. Well, you are free to go, or stay if you want." I made my mouth exaggerating a bit. I wasn't used to talking to deaf folk. "That is not necessary," Lester said behind me as his cloak deactivated. His shot between my shoulder blades slammed me into the ground, knocking the wind out of my lungs and numbing my entire lower body. For a horrible moment, I wondered if I was paralyzed. Then I realized that I wasn't even the beginning as he pointed his rifle at the clump of zebras. For your treason against the fallen Caesar. The stream of psst filled my ears as I watched him butcher every buck, mare, and foal with stripes. When the shots ended, no pony raised a rifle to stop him. Every pony seemed paralyzed, even me. The war is never over, security. Man, I'm sorry, but if I was like in this Fallout thing, I probably would be partially insane. Most for one. Two, I would have a certain affinity to explosives, like P-21, and yeah, I would have shoved a stick of dynamite straight up his ass. No lube or anything, just straight up the ass. So yeah, uh, explosive colonoscopy. Yeah, that's how I would do it. Oh, and it's not over yet. Uh, Lancer said before the zebra's stealth cloak shimmered and he disappeared once more. Footnote: Level up. New perk added. Tough hide. Level 1. The brutal experiences of the equestrian wasteland have toughened you. You gain +3 damage threshold for every level of this perk you take. So yeah. Nightlife. Being in the equestrian wasteland. Either I'd be dead pretty quickly, or fuck it. You know what? I'd just go with all the lasers, and pretty lasers. Laser shows everywhere, and laser shows that will kill your ass dead. Okay. I'm going to upload this. Then I'm going to go to bed because it is 2:30, and it will be around 4 o'clock when I finally get this thing ready to be uploaded, since, yeah, converting shit, saving shit, it's a bitch. So, yeah, this has been Nightlife, giving you Chapter 9 of Fallout Equestria Project Horizons. This chapter has been titled Stone. And yeah, it's by Somber. And this is Nightlife. Out. Peace.